The best diet is a you diet. So what I get them to do, and everybody who's listening can do this right now, is write a list of everything that you've ever eaten in your life ever. Don't filter if it's healthy, unhealthy, convenient, expensive. Just write everything down.
We are here with another amazing episode of the Resistingbeta podcast. Here's some questions that I'll have for our amazing guest today. His name is Daniel. And we're going to talk about health and weight loss and all that stuff that can be very simple, but also very hard to execute upon. So here's some questions that I have for Daniel today that we'll talk about, that we'll get into. So what do we do if we are at our rock bottom health moment? You know, that moment where you just beat yourself up every single day because you've put on that extra weight, and sometimes you might even like drink or eat because you're sad, like having those moments of just self-deprivation and beating yourself up in those narratives that you're maybe you're not good enough and you can't do it and all those things. So how can we defeat that failure demon? You know, that little demon that sits on your shoulder that you gain a bunch of weight, maybe it's 20 pounds, and then maybe you lose 10 of it, and you're excited, and then something knocks you off your progress, off your momentum, and you gain that same 10 pounds back on again, and maybe some more. And then this happens, and all of a sudden you look yourself in the mirror, and you're like, what the hell happened to me? I used to be an athlete, right? So a little bit about Daniel. He helps men lose 30 pounds in 4 months without going to the gym. And as a marketer, I love that explanation of value that he does. I want to commend him on that. He's an online fitness coach, and not because it's convenient for him, but because he was getting better results for his clients. And through his processes and online training, he's transformed the lives of over 40 human beings. Transformed their lives. Because I know for me, I lost a bunch of weight. I used to be a big fat 280 pounds, and now I'm not, and it feels amazing. Still got a lot more ways to go. Daniel, he went to the University of British Columbia in Canada, and he studied exercise and nutrition. He's actually had a pretty interesting journey from where he grew up to where he's at now. So, Daniel, I really appreciate you being here.
Thanks a lot. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, man, well, fill me in a little bit about your story, just in a brief kind of Reader's Digest version of how you came about to become a personal trainer, and maybe other personal insights that where the men can relate to you a little bit.
For sure. So from Israel. When I was 6, my family and I, we moved to China. I grew up there. At the age of 18, I wanted to go to Canada because I have two older brothers. One of them was in the US. One of them went to school in Australia. I said, let's find a different country and go to university there. So I went to the west side of Canada because that's quote-unquote warmer side. I'm not used to snow or the cold or any of that. So that was a pretty big shock when I moved here. And I actually went to school to be a physiotherapist. That's what I wanted to do. And after my second year of university, I decided I'm way more into personal training. So I worked at a couple of gyms. Then in 2020, I'm sure a few of you have heard there's sort of a lockdown situation going on. So I was not prepared for that, obviously. So I had to figure out how I can get amazing results for myself. Then I realized that Gordon Ramsay can make a better meal with 1 pan than the average person can with 5 pans. Meaning, it's not about the equipment you have, it's about knowing what to do. And because I had all this knowledge, even though I had no equipment, I was still able to get just as good as results for myself. So I thought, hey, there's many people who are in worse shape now than ever before. Let's see if I can help people lose weight online. And I was able to do that even more successfully than the people who I trained in person, which was pretty cool. So now I'm fully online.
That's awesome, man. So what hurdles do most men have before they even talk to you? Because I think that as men, we're stubborn. We don't like to ask for help. So how do you help men get over something like that, where we think we know what we're doing, but the results aren't necessarily speaking for themselves? So what should a guy know that might be in that situation?
Right. So everybody has a body, so they think they know their body, right? But if you don't look how you want to, then you're doing something wrong. There's something that's missing. And it might not be that you have to work hard, you just have to work smarter, because there are people who are just as busy as you, who are putting in the same amount of effort as you, but are in better shape. And they have the same genetics as you. They're just doing different things, right? So it's about getting leverage. It's about getting more out of the effort that you are putting. Because the reality is, learning how to drive a car is not easy. It's easy once you've mastered it, but to begin with, it's not easy. But if you had to learn how to drive a car on your own, you've never had any driving instructor, you'd probably crash a bunch of times. It would be unsafe. But if you had a driving instructor, someone to show you the ways, then after a couple of months, you'll be able to drive no problem, and you'll be able to sustain your driving capabilities no matter what country you're in, no matter what happens. And it's the same with fitness. It's difficult if you don't have someone to show you the best ways to navigate, the best ways to go about it. But if you learn a few principles and have someone teach you the best ways to go about it, then no matter what country you go to, no matter your situation, you'll be able to maintain that for life.
I like the word you just said there. You said the word principles. So let's say I am at a point where I've hit the rock bottom health moment, or maybe it's not rock bottom, but maybe it's just like a point of frustration to where it's like, damn it, I'm tired of this. Like, I'm tired of having to buy new pants. I'm tired of the shirts that used to fit not fitting anymore. Like, what are some of those principles that we can embrace to shift that narrative and make some actual change in our life?
That's a good question, because it's very important to differentiate between principles and and individual preferences. So principles are things that work for 100% of humans, no exceptions. A principle is, if I burn more calories than I consume, I will lose weight. That works for everyone. And individual preference is keto diet, intermittent fasting, HIIT workouts. That may work fantastic for some people, but not so much for other people. Right? So it's important to know what the principles are, and after that, you are able to choose the individual preferences. So another principle can be that if you're not hydrated, if you don't drink enough water, then you'll look and feel bloated, and you'll carry a lot more water weight inside of you. Right? That is applicable to everyone. There's no person that the more water they drink, the less hydrated they'll be. It doesn't work that way. Right? But again, waking up early or waking up late, that's in the individual preference. There's people that are early birds, there's people that are night owls, right? So it's important to know that difference.
Yeah, I like the distinguishing point towards, like, first you have to, like, it's like stacking frameworks on top of each other. First, you have to make sure you're covering your principles, right? You're covering the basics. Are you sleeping enough? Are you drinking enough water, right? And now it's navigating preferences to where it's like, okay, well, most people have those principles and they know them. They're just not have the discipline to follow those, right? And I think that as men, we get stuck at the preferences component because there's so much conflicting information out there. We don't know what to choose, so we choose nothing. So how can we navigate those preferences, because everyone's body's different and what works for one person might work differently for another person? And how do we navigate and stay away from the paralysis analysis phase of weight loss with all of this conflicting crap out there saying that this is the best, this is the best, this is the best, this is a miracle pill and all that?
100%. So all the conflicting advice is regarding individual preferences, not principles. So firstly, have all the principles knocked down. After that, you can choose individual preference. And for my clients, I tell them that the best diet is a you diet. So what I get them to do, and everybody who's listening can do this right now, is write a list of everything that you've ever eaten in your life ever. Don't filter if it's healthy, unhealthy, convenient, expensive. Just write everything down. Once you wrote everything down, break it into 4 categories. So there's healthy, tasty, healthy, not tasty, tasty, not healthy, and not tasty, not healthy. So after you wrote everything down, I want you to underline what's also... after you wrote everything down, separate, choose everything that's healthy and tasty, and write that in one list. And obviously, everybody knows what tasty feels like. And healthy, I always say, think about how you feel 20 minutes after you eat it. Usually, with healthy foods, you feel lighter and energized. With unhealthy food, you feel drowsy and tired, right? Now, ideally, you have someone who is a nutrition expert that can help differentiate what's actually healthy and what's not, so they can, maybe break some misconceptions, right? But even if you don't have that, even if you don't have a coach, 80% of the time your knowledge is pretty accurate, right? So the healthy, tasty, that should be 80% of your diet. Then the unhealthy, not tasty, you should try to not eat that ever. And that sounds obvious, but if people order dessert and the dessert doesn't taste good, they still want to finish the dessert because they don't want to quote unquote waste money. But the money is already spent. You already spent the money. You continue to finish your plate and eat more of what you don't like is only harming you. So stop doing that. If you order alcohol and you don't like the drink, you don't have to finish it, right? This sounds obvious, but so many people don't do it. They feel like they have to finish what's on the plate. But the money's already wasted. It's not going to fill you up more because you don't like it. So stop.
Yeah.
Then the healthy but not so tasty category, I recommend that should be 10% of your diet. And by not tasty, I don't mean disgusting. I don't mean something that's despicable to you. I mean something that you don't necessarily love, but don't necessarily hate. So for me, not long ago, I didn't love onions. I didn't hate onions. I thought they were meh. They're okay. But because I recognize that onions are healthy, every time I ate soup or chicken or ordered a sandwich, I sprinkled some onions on there. And because I did it for consecutive months, now I love the taste of onions. So eventually you'll be able to take foods that were in the healthy but not so tasty category to the healthy and tasty category. Because I believe in general your diet isn't about elimination, it's about adding. There's no food that I'll tell you can never eat that. That's not what I'm about. I'll never say you can't eat any food. Because on a quick tangent, Andrew, if I tell you you can't press this button, do not press this button, whatever happens, make sure you're not allowed to press this button. What do you want to do?
Oh, I want to push that damn button. I'm going to push that
button. You got to press the button. So, as humans, if somebody else tells us we can't do something, we want to do it even more. If we tell ourselves we can't eat donuts, we can't drink alcohol, we are going to binge. So, I never say can't. I always say, hey, I don't eat donuts. I don't drink alcohol. If I say don't, then you're way less likely to be tempted to binge, right? So I never say anything's off limits because diet is not about subtracting, it's about adding more foods that you enjoy. And also in the healthy but not so tasty category, I recommend that once a month you go to the grocery store and try a food that you've never tried before. So it can be a new fish, a new vegetable, or whatever. And you'll be surprised. There's so many foods that are tasty and healthy, but you don't know they're tasty because you've never tried. So again, that is about expanding, not about subtracting. And then finally, people's favorite category, tasty but not so healthy. 10% eat whatever you want, right? Just make sure that you don't go overboard because people think that they treat themselves with a piece of cake, but that turns into the entire cake. Right? So that's a problem. But if you eat a slice of cake once a week, nothing's going to happen.
So is that 10% of like your overall like caloric intake for the week or for the day? Is that kind of what you mean by that?
Yes. So you can break it down by day, by week. It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Another misconception that I find a lot of people have is that timing matters. They think that if you eat past 6 p.m. or it will make a difference than if you before 3 p.m. But the amount of calories, the quantity matters way more than the timing.
That makes sense. Yeah, you talked about something that made me think of growing up where my dad always would reinforce the clean your plate strategy. Yeah. And it's something to this day that even like, I think it's one of the reasons, well, I know it's one of the reasons why I gained a bunch of weight because I had kids and then they wouldn't clean their plate. So I would clean my plate and I would also eat the food on their plate, right? Because I was just this ingrained in me from my father and probably from his father who went through the Great Depression of you're not wasting food because we don't have food to waste. right? And then that methodology just gets passed down, and we don't necessarily question that because it's like how we grew up, right? So that spoke to me. Do you find a lot of men have that same thought process?
100%. People often do things just because other people have always done it. But that might have made complete sense 50 years ago, 100 years ago. It doesn't make sense now. Our body wants to store as much fat as possible in case there's starvation and there's no food so we can survive. But that's not applicable nowadays. So you shouldn't worry about it.
Yeah. Another thing you said is, I want the men to just not miss this point. Do not miss this point, right? The changing from can't to don't. And Daniel, this is brilliant because can't is a scarcity mindset. Don't is an identity shift where I don't drink alcohol or I don't stay up past 10 o'clock. It is you changing the language that you say, which is super important from establishing the foundations for your own internal narratives and reshaping who you are as a man. If those things do not contribute to your mission, do not contribute to who you are or who you want to be or who are you becoming, those narratives, it's imperative you shift them. However, if you stay in the can't mindset, then you're stuck in scarcity, which men aren't meant to be scarce mindset, and it'll keep you in a depressive state. But the don't of, hey, I just don't eat donuts because I know it's not moving me towards my mission, or I don't drink alcohol, or and just kind of giving yourself rules and frameworks, and this narrative shift in language is super important. So I'm really glad you said that, Daniel.
100%. People always ask me, what diet are you on? Or what do you eat? I say, I eat whatever I want, whenever I want. And it's true. I don't want to harm myself, so I don't eat things that are bad for me. I want good for myself, so I do things that are good for me. You can change a person's life just by changing the words that they say to themselves. Whenever I hear my clients say things that I know will be detrimental to them, I make sure to stop and be like, hey, let's rewind. What made you say that? A good shift to have is, hey, you are an athlete. That's one of the first concepts I ingrain in my client's mind, which is, hey, you're an athlete. If you don't know what to do, what would an athlete do? If you don't feel like working out, what would an athlete do? Well, he would probably work out anyways. You're not sure what to eat, what would an athlete do? Well, he will get a coach and ask, right? He will always find a way to do something. What would the best version of yourself do? Because deep down, many times you know what to do. You just need another form of accountability to make sure that you actually get there.
It's funny that it makes me think of I forget the name of the book. I'll add it to the show notes when I remember it. But essentially, he talks about the identity that really advanced and successful athletes have, or performers, where like Beyonce has Sasha Fierce, and Kobe Bryant had the Black Mamba, and they had these like alter personalities that they would embody in a competitive moment or when they needed to draw on energy. And they kind of embodied the best version of them, right? A different kind of like calling in the spirit of somebody else. And I like the fact that we're here because it's important towards like, okay, what would the best version of me do? And, you know, if you're religious, you kind of have like, what would Jesus do bracelets? But this is just more of like what would the best version of me do right now? If I'm at a crossroads and I have a choice of like, okay, well, should I do this or that? At least having a question-based framework that can shift that away from emotional decisions of the I wants to versus I should, right? These key moments of like, should I eat the donut or do I want to eat the donut? Should I go to McDonald's or do I want to go to McDonald's? You know, and having that extra question of, well, what would the best version of me do right now? And then you know the answer.
Yeah, and you can also ask yourself, what would future me be proud of?
Oh, I like that.
Speak to your future self quite often because he wants the best for you. So have that mindset. And I also think that you should have an ego to yourself about, hey, during tough times, I'm the type of person to do this. And if things are extra challenging, be like, hey, when everybody else will quit, I will persist. I will continue. You need to have, as you mentioned, like Sisyphus or Black Mamba, you need to have an ego to yourself. Be like, hey, I'm that guy. I'm the type of person who comes over top. And it's supposed to be difficult. That's what makes it worth it. If everybody had a six pack, it would have no value to it. So if you're not struggling, that means you're not going after the right goal.
So when these guys are struggling, when at these moments of peak frustration, where do you see most people make mistakes? When they're finally ready to lose weight, what do they do wrong that keeps them from not accomplishing their goal?
Most people who have been eating whatever they want without any limitation, who haven't done any exercise, on January 1st, they said, okay, I'm going to work out 2 hours a day. I'm going to only eat bananas and apples, nothing else. I am going to walk everywhere. I'm never going to drive my car. They set super unrealistic expectations from themselves, something that even the top 0.1% of athletes don't stick to. So they go about it in super unrealistic ways. And after a week, after 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, they realize that they can't sustain it because it's way too difficult. So they give up, they feel like a failure, and the loop continues. And they probably feel worse about themselves than when they started. So I say, hey, let's take the opposite approach. I always say start with the easy wins. An easy win is anything that doesn't take time, often doesn't take effort, and move the needle in your favor. So as an example, no matter where I'm at, I will always have a water bottle within arm's reach. I saw that you have one as well, Andrew. As if you just have a water bottle within arm's reach, you stay hydrated a lot easier. You won't look or feel as bloated. You won't be as hungry because many people think they're hungry, but they're actually bored or dehydrated. So that's an easy win anybody can implement immediately. If every time you're talking on the phone, instead of sitting, if you simply stand and walk, that's an easy win. It doesn't take time, doesn't really take effort, and it helps burn extra calories. If you improve your sleep quality, that's an easy win because you don't have to take more time, you just improve the quality and you'll feel more energetic, you'll have higher testosterone, you will build muscle and lose fat a lot easier. So master all the easy wins that you can implement no matter how busy you are, no matter what happens. And then when you see the weight drop off, when you visually see tangible results, that will motivate you to take even more action and do even more things that will move the needle in your favor even more so.
Yeah, I really like this concept of habit stacking, where you're creating principles. Like you had said the word principles. I think that it's not necessarily a word that I use a lot, but I like it. That aren't sexy, that are basics. They're the fundamentals. They're the blocking and tackling of optimizing your health, right? We all know them. We don't all always do them because they aren't easy, but they're simple. And I like simple things. And I found that's the difference between successful people and victims or unsuccessful, is that they do the little things, the simple things, when they're not easy, right? Over and over and over every single day, multiple times a day, they do the simple things. Where the other crowd, they choose what they feel like or what they don't feel like, right?
Yeah.
And if it's, oh man, I really want that soda, or I should drink water, it's like, okay, well, we know the answer to that question, right? So, and it's just stacking up these small promises to yourself over and over and over again. And if it's the water thing, if you want to start there, if it's the sleep thing, but I like the fact that you're talking about subtle and small changes to really start stacking up these easy wins. How can we make a bigger deal over these easy wins? Because I think that when we're in this miracle pill society of, I lost 14 pounds in 7 hours because I took this miracle pill or this miracle shake or all that crap, like all this marketing programming that has programmed us to basically set us up for failure because the expectations aren't real. How can we make these little small wins more impactful from like a psychology component so it feels better? Like how can we like turn these into like a snowball effect?
100%. So I always start with the goals of my clients. So I ask them, hey, what do you want to achieve? They say, I want to lose 50 pounds, have more energy. I'm like, okay, let's say that you lost 50 pounds, had more energy. Then what? Well, then I would like to sustain it for life. I'm like, exactly. The point is to sustain it for life. We're not about taking an Instagram picture and then gaining all the weight back. If it's not sustainable, then what's the point? If you can't keep up with your diet for a decade, don't do it for a day. That's why I recommend a U diet versus keto or vegan or something that may work fantastic for a few people or some people, but it doesn't work well for everyone. But a U diet works well for everyone because it's about you. So let's make sure that we have habits instilled in us that you can still lose weight even if you're on vacation, even if you're super busy and life is super hectic. Because if you can lose weight when things are at the worst, when you have absolutely no time, when you have no energy, when you're super stressed, if you can lose weight then you know you can sustain for a lifetime. So we always prepare for the worst case, and then when the best case does show up, it's cakewalk. It's easy, like you succeed inevitably.
Let's stay there for a second. So I don't have time, right? Or I don't have energy. And I think that the men listening to this, it's one of those two things. It's like, oh, I have kids, I have my job, I have my wife, I have this house. I just don't have time. And if I did have time, I'm freaking exhausted, right? So how can we navigate this internal excuse or objection and help them work through it?
I found the best way to dismantle excuses or objection that are irrational is to say another irrational statement that people agree with. So when people say, I am too tired to work out, I say, that's like saying, I am too sick to go to the doctor. Your excuse is the solution. When people say, I will meal prep when I have more time, that's like saying, I will save money when I'm rich. It's the other way around. You're not thinking about it correctly, right? So working out doesn't have to be 2 hours. As you know, it doesn't have to be at a gym. It can be 20 minutes, body weight, at home, that's it. And in regards to workouts, I always say it's not a dichotomy. It's not, did you work out, did you not work out? It's how much did you work out? 20%, 40%, you can always do something. Let's say I give you a 30-minute workout and you tell me you don't have time. Like, hey, you didn't have time for 20%? You didn't have time for 6 minutes? Like, okay, no, I had 6 minutes. Cool. Do that. Again, it's not binary. It's a spectrum. How much are you able to do it? And in terms of time, what I recommend is firstly, master the things that don't take time and help you lose weight. So again, sleep quality, walking, talking on the phone, you can take cold showers, you can have a water bottle within arm's reach, you can make sure that you don't have any unhealthy foods in your vicinity. Because for me to eat ice cream, I have to get in my car, drive to the grocery store for 20 minutes, talk to the cashier, pay for ice cream, come back, unwrap, eat it. For most people, they have to walk 30 seconds to the fridge. Who has more willpower? Well, not necessarily me, because it takes so much effort on my side to make unhealthy decisions, and it takes very little effort on my side to make healthy decisions. So you want to set yourself up for success. But firstly, obviously, master the things that don't take time, but also most people do have time, they just don't know where their time is spent. Using a calendar will dramatically help you in so many aspects, because most of the time people don't know where the time is spent. If you simply take a day to track how you spend every single minute, you'll be shocked how often you waste time doing nothing.
I like that because I think we've mentioned now tracking your food that you've eaten in your life, right? You know, writing down everything and then segmenting it into the four categories that you talked about. Now we're talking about tracking time, right? So I think that these are some key components that I've seen in my life that when I track something, it improves. In my professional career, when I track something, it improves. And it's usually tracking small key things and not tracking 50 different things, right? So what are some of the things that you ask your men to track that, because I think one of the things that I've explored in health is like I watch these guys who kind of like track macros and all that stuff, and I've dabbled in it and it's too much for me. You know, I've done the MyFitnessPal when they had the free version and it was better, and now they asked me to pay more money, which I haven't done yet.
Yep.
But when they made that change, I was a little disappointed because I don't use the app because I can't scan the barcode thing. But but when I could, it helped me, you know. But now they want more money than I want to pay. Anyway, maybe that's my own mindset. But so let's talk about this tracking component. So when you're helping these men lose 30 pounds in 4 months, what are the things you're asking them to do from a tracking standpoint?
So in regards to tracking food, I say track for about a few weeks or a month. I personally don't track anymore because my intuition is very tuned. I know exactly what I'm eating. However, most people, there's a huge gap between what they think they eat and what they actually eat. So say, hey, track for a month just to fine-tune your intuition. After a month of tracking, you should have some sort of idea. But at the very start, you have no clue. You think you're eating this many calories, but you're eating this many calories. You think you're eating this much protein, but you're eating way lower protein than you actually think. So tracking helps, and you don't have to use a food scale or anything ridiculous like that. You can simply, as you know, barcode, you can simply guess. Or what I tell most of my clients is to take a picture. Because most of the times, when they take a picture, they say, hey, I ate 2 servings of rice. I see the picture, I'm like, hey, that is at least 5 servings, at least. So taking a picture definitely helps because I've been doing this for so long, I know. And after a month or so, along with teaching my clients a few principles, then they're able to not track and still eat healthy foods, because you don't want to be the guy at a wedding or an event carrying a food scale and measuring every gram. I find ridiculous that so many personal trainers do that. I haven't tracked for years, and you don't need to after you fine-tune your intuition. I do agree that at the very start you definitely should, because you have no clue what you eat. You think you do, but you're way off. But after a month, you should be good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's important because I think that the mindset, it changes when you start tracking on what you're actually eating. Because I know early on in my weight loss stuff, I've been doing intermittent fasting for like, I don't know, a long time, 6 years probably. Ever since I watched and listened to The 4 Hour Body by Tim Ferriss. And he talked about the slow carb diet and intermittent fasting. And it taught me some very cool things, to where it taught me that usually when I ate, I wasn't actually hungry. I was thirsty. And 2, it taught me that a lot of times when I ate, especially after 7 o'clock, it's because of emotional things, whether I'm sad, usually because I'm sad. And I would use food as a tool, because I love food, to help me feel better. And it was, or bored, where it's like, I need to get up and stretch my legs. What's in the pantry, right? And I think that having a framework of intermittent fasting for me helped teach me that, well, one, I had a rule. It's like, okay, well, I don't eat past 7 o'clock because I would be breaking my intermittent fasting rule, right? So I think as men, we're very strong in logic and it'll work in some parts of our life, but we don't necessarily apply it to other parts of our life, right? And whenever I've done that, whether it be in dating or weight loss or business, having a framework of logic of like, I do's and I don'ts because, right? And the why. So you'd mentioned early on that you asked the question of, okay, let's say you lose that 50 pounds, then what? And that's a question that I think is really interesting to me, to where I think we spend so much time chasing the rabbit, but we don't know we think life's going to change when we catch it. And then I'm sure there have been some times in your life where you've caught the rabbit and you're like, now what? I still have all the problems and challenges I had before, but it just so happens to have the outcome of this particular rabbit in your life. Like, for you, you're like, oh, okay, well, I was chasing having a six-pack. Now I have a six-pack. Now what?
The beautiful thing about having a six-pack is not actually having a six-pack. It's about the person that you have to become to get a six-pack and maintain it. So many people that do weight loss surgery, they lose the weight and they gain back because they didn't change who they are as a person. And they're still not confident because they didn't change who they are as a person. But if you change who you are and you become fit and you lose those 50 pounds naturally, then your mindset changes, how you view the world, how you view yourself. And that can give you confidence that bleeds into everything. So many times I remind myself, hey, I was able to accomplish a lot physically. What else can I accomplish financially, relationshiply, spiritually? I know for a fact that because I accomplished this, I have so much confidence I can accomplish anything because it took so much effort and so much willpower to find out how to do the right things, that even though it's an autopilot now, even though right now it's easy, no matter what happens, no matter what situation I'm at, I'll maintain how I look because it's who I am. I know I can translate that work ethic and confidence to other parts. And no matter what recession happens, I'll always be financially secure because I'm the type of person. I want to reach where I reach physically in other aspects of my life. And I believe I can do that because I accomplished in one.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you saying that because I look back on my life and there was a moment for me when I hit my divorce. I looked at a bottle of bourbon on the top of my fridge and I thought I just wanted to get hammered. And for some reason I didn't. And I asked myself the question of, what if I use this pain as energy or as fuel? So the next day I woke up before sunrise and went for a walk. And then I had an idea on that walk of like, what if I did this for 100 days in a row? And I did that. I went on a walk for 100 days in a row before sunrise, and then I added one extra step of journaling, and I documented it on social media. And then I was like, holy crap, that discipline worked. Like, it wasn't something super hard. I just woke up before sunrise and went for a walk. It wasn't sexy, but the cadence of it. And then I was like, okay, what other part of my life do I want to improve? So at that point in time, I needed to improve my mindset, my head, because I was fucked up from my divorce, basically. So then I was like, okay, well, my fitness is a little bit, could be improved, right? So then I worked out for 100 days in a row. And it wasn't something sexy. I just used an app called 7, and there were 7-minute workouts. And sometimes that's all I did was 7 minutes, and sometimes I did 3 of them. So it was a half-hour workout or so, or longer, depending on where I felt. But I gave myself the win at 7, right? The basics. It's like, I could do anything for 7 minutes, right? I feel like all of us could. But when we set the bar at 45 or an hour, it's setting yourself up for the days where your kids kept you up until 2 a.m. or you stayed up too late, or maybe you had some cocktails the night before because it was a wedding, or all of those things. But if you have that 7-minute bar, then at least it's still a win that you can check mark on your calendar for that day. I won today because I did this. And building that discipline, because I thought discipline was something that I just didn't have. I wasn't gifted. But what it was a weak muscle. I just didn't develop the discipline muscle. And it's one of those things that that's a lesson I keep learning in my life, to where that discipline muscle can get weak in any part of our life. And just because I had it in the past doesn't mean it's going to be there for the rest of my life. So creating these systems and frequencies of discipline is the key to anything you want to achieve in life. And it just so happens that fitness and losing weight is a very input-output game. So it's nice to kind of test and build that discipline in fitness but and then you can carry that forward to a lot of other things. So I love the fact that you said the man that you need to become, the man that you will become from getting that six pack could change who you are and could change your life because of, not because you have a six pack, but because of who you are and what you did and the discipline you created to become that man that happens to have a six pack, but you also have this superhuman power of discipline that you can apply to business, to relationships, and parenting, any part of your life that you want to improve. So I'm just really excited you mentioned that, and just went off on a tangent there that that I hope the men just benefited from.
I know that's a great point that I want to emphasize even more so, because I vividly remember what I looked like when I did not love how I look. And I know what I look like now. So I always keep that image in my head when things get tough in relationships or when things get tough financially. I always keep that vision in my head, be like, hey, I overcame that. I can overcome this. And if you're not happy with how you look, vividly remember how you look right now. Keep that ingrained inside of you. You can obviously take a picture so you can see the classic before and after. But even just mentally, remember how you feel, remember how you look right now, because once you are on the other side, it would mean that much more. If you started at the top and then you went slightly higher, that's not a good movie to watch. That's not exciting. If you started at the bottom and now you're here, that will excite you a lot more. So I love the fact that you're wearing a superhero, Superman shirt. But yes, view yourself as a superhero at the start of the movie when nothing is going well for you. You are facing endless obstacles, and that's fantastic because the more obstacles, the more conflict, the better the movie. If you succeeded in the first 5 minutes of the movie, that's a shitty movie. If it took you 2 or 3 hours, or in real life, a couple of years, and all hope was lost, especially towards the end, if there was no way for you to succeed, that's a good movie. I want to see that. Right? But obviously, you have to come out on top. Otherwise, that'd be a pretty sad movie. But you will come up on top as long as you keep going. The only way to really lose is to quit. And I know that might sound cliche, but it's true. As long as you keep doing the right things consistently, you'll lose weight. You are not beyond biology. You're not beyond physics. Doesn't matter who you are, you can't do this.
All right, man. Well, I just clipped that. So I'm excited. I think that you guys should rewind and listen to the last 10 minutes, but at least the last 30, because I think that there's been some gold here as we finish up this episode. So there's a couple questions I ask every single guest. The first one, Daniel, is what does it mean to be a man to you?
A man is someone that sticks by his word and does what he says he's going to do, whether he feels like it or not. Some people lie to other people, but even more dangerous than that is they lie to themselves. The definition of confidence is having firm trust, and you can only trust yourself if you do what you say you're going to do. So even if you don't say anything to anyone, if you mentally told yourself, I'm going to work out, and you didn't, your subconscious is never going to forgive you. Your subconscious is always going to remember that. So the reason why you don't feel how you want to feel, is because you're lying to yourself. You aren't keeping the promises that you made. If you keep the promises that you made to yourself, you'll be more confident. You'll be the man that you want to be.
Love that. And the other question that I ask every man or woman on the podcast is, I want you to put your professorial hat on. We've covered a lot of action steps today, but I always like to kind of unpack that and simplify it and take the men by the hand and saying, okay, what are the things that they can do over the next 7 days? Baby steps that they can get some quick wins in their life. So let's break it down, simplify it. Daniel, what is the one thing that they should do over the next 7 days to get them out of this health funk, get them some quick wins and shedding some pounds and becoming the better version of them?
You said one thing which is interesting, because if a genie was to come up to me and say, hey, Daniel, you have one wish. What do you want? My wish would be to have more wishes. Because the truth is, there isn't one thing that will make or break your success. It's 1,000 little things. So if I had to give one thing, it would be hire someone that's helped people in your exact situation reach where you want to get to. That can be applied financially, physically, spiritually, relationship, anything, right? Because there's a thousand small things you need to do. It's not one thing that will make or break. But if I had to give tangible tips, I'm going to have to give a few because there isn't one that's better than the others. But as I said, water bottle within arm's reach, that's something anybody and everybody should do. I read that 75% of American adults are dehydrated, cause them to look and feel bloated. So make sure you take care of that. Make sure you have high quality sleep by sleeping in a cool environment, dark, and try to have low stimulation before bed. So not arguing with strangers on the internet or not getting heated debates or watching Netflix before you sleep. Try to avoid that. Try to set reminders, set at least 5 reminders, at least 5 alarms on the phone right now that every 30 minutes, every hour, or whenever is convenient for you, you will get up and move for 2 minutes. Even 2 minutes makes a big difference. And just think about yourself as an athlete, as someone that is a superhero. Always keep in mind what your future self would be proud of. Make decisions based on that, and you'll be good to go. That's probably the biggest shift that will make the biggest difference.
All right. I don't mind multi-step, simple stuff, so we'll break that down. So now, Daniel, I'm sure the men, if they're at this point in this episode, they've gotten a lot of value out of it. So let's take an opportunity to let the men know how they can get a hold of you if they want to take that extra step of, okay, what's the one variable I haven't tried in fixing my health? And is that I just need somebody to narrow down the choices and give me some advice that's helpful to me and get out of my own damn head. So just take a moment, work in the men, find out a little bit more about what you do, your coaching, just kind of continue the discussion and build that relationship with you.
100%. So my website is danielrzfit.com. That's danielrzfit.com. Even if you just want some inspiration, some extra motivation, look at that. See people that were in the exact same shoes as you, took the leap of faith, and now they are obviously where they want to be. You can also check me out on Instagram at danielrzfit, or I'm most active on Twitter, danielraz_fit. That's my favorite place to be. I post there constantly. I'll definitely do my best to continually give you a lot of value. And if you message me either on Twitter or Instagram that you saw this episode, I'll give you an ebook that I made that is a short read. It involves all the easy wins that will help you lose weight. The title of the ebook is 7 Stupid Simple Steps to Lose 10 Pounds that require basically zero time or effort. So let me know that you watch this or listen to this podcast. I'll send it over to you, and maybe we can talk in the future about how I can best help you.
All right, man. We want to give you a little bit of value there. Just shoot him a DM, and he'll give you a knowledge bomb there. So, hey, man, I just want to honor you for who you are. I mean, you're a young man, younger than me. So I want to just give you just the respect that I have for you, and just really glad and honored that you're here. I'm honored to know you, and I'm really proud of the fact that you have become the man that you are at an age where you can impact so many other people with the knowledge. I want to honor you for pushing past the fear it took to be here, to be doing what you're doing, to fight through all the imposter syndrome and all the trials and tribulations that you did to get to where you're at in your life. Because I'm so excited about the ripple effect of that choice, because I know there are so many men in a body that they do not like, and it's not contributing to who they need to become to fulfill their mission for their families, for themselves, and for the men around them. So I just really appreciate you for that.
Definitely. I really appreciate you having me on here.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. All right, so I'll cut the episode there. So what I do at the end here is the same thing I mentioned at the beginning, is creating a 30-second, essentially social media promo clip answering the question, why should men listen to this episode? So I know it's at the end of the episode, energy is depleted. So if we could lift your energy up, do your best promo for answering the question on why should men listen to this episode? Whenever you're ready.
If you want to lose 30 pounds or more without going to the gym, listen to this episode, as I will say tactics that will help you. Hold on, I'm not sure the best way to go about it.
That's okay. So whenever you can start again, kind of gather your thoughts. And
so be like in this episode we talked about.
Yeah. So my name is Daniel Raz, and in this episode we'll talk about the tools and tactics and mindset where you can lose 30 pounds in the next 4 months. And it's a lot easier than you think it is. So don't miss the episode or something like that.
In this episode with Andrew, we talked about how to lose 30 pounds without going to the gym, and it might be a lot easier than you think. Listen to this episode to find out how.